We've been talking a lot about the unnecessary and how it kills scripts, and you said how 98%, possibly even 99 point whatever, 5% of scripts are totally unreadable.
It has to do with both storytelling and script writing craft, because a great story that is not stage-worthy doesn't work. In theater, they have this term, they say it's a great story, but it's not stage-worthy. Yes, it sounds great around a campfire, but we can't perform it on stage in a way that will grip an audience. So you can have the best story in the world, but if it doesn't work dramatically, then it doesn't make a good script. And you can have phenomenal craft as a dramatist, but if your story is poor, then it's mere structure. It's just well-structured crap. It doesn't do you any good either. So a lot of scripts that don't work fall into those two broad categories. That either the underlying story is weak or has been done to death, or any variations on why the story itself doesn't work, or that the structure of the story does not lend itself to being performed theatrically as a film, TV show, or stage, or even dramatic content these days. And the unnecessary is a big part of that, because the unnecessary crops up everywhere. It's the profusion of unnecessary detail is always swirling around a story. It's a lot like at NASA, they talk about launch weight. Like a rocket is engineered to only lift a certain amount of weight of payload with the amount of rocket fuel that's on board. And it's an escalating problem where if the weight of the rocket, if what's being brought on the rocket gets heavier, then you need more rocket fuel to hoist it, which makes the whole rocket heavier. So you need more rocket fuel. It kind of exponentially, so they're ruthless in terms of what gets on that rocket ship. And so, because they have to have, the launch weight has to be what they say it has to be, because it's been engineered right down to the last liter of fuel that's on board. So in the same way, that part of your storytelling person is saying, I need this to go in the script too, it may sink it. It may just be too much for it. Part of what it is that it has to do with the forward progression of the story's action and what the audience is actually seeing. There's a chain of events that constitute a scene or a sequence or an act or the overall story, and that's what is necessary to make that script work. And if you try to add something in that is not necessary, if you go off on a tangent, then you can well lose the audience's being on the edge of their seat. If you're following a chain of action, each cause creates an expectation in the audience of like, okay, so now what's that going to cause? And then the effect of that happens, which causes the next effect. And so if you put a cause in motion and the audience is on the edge of their seat wanting to know what comes next, and you wander off on a tangent, then the audience is going, no, where's the thing? Come on, come on. And it can become flat dramatically or dead dramatically, or you just lose the audience. And if you lose the audience, then the dramatic power of the material fades. It's one of the reasons why a script doesn't work, or why an actual movie or TV show or stage play doesn't work. So it has to do with the stripped down nature of dramatic writing. It's a lot like dipping a fish in acid and pulling out just the bones. The bones are what make the story work. And I've known this before, but the showrunner I was telling you about said it well. She said, once you strip the plot down to its just pure metal on metal bones, that gives you the flexibility to do something creative with it, to play around a bit, because it's a very tight, rigorous structure. So you have room to layer in a little color, to let it breathe, to let it move. It's like a jazz musician where you know we're going to play A, B sharp, D, so you know what you're doing, but you can still improvise around it and kind of breathe life into it. You're still following the structure, but there's also room to improvise because it's so stripped down. And that allows it to breathe. So it's not mechanical or anything, it's alive. And so it's not so much what's unnecessary, it's what's necessary. And if you're a good storyteller and have great craft as a dramatist, then you know what's necessary to make the story work dramatically. And that's what's important. If you're a rocket scientist and you can't make the damn thing fly, then you don't know what's necessary. So there is really only what's necessary. Everything else is unnecessary. Some of those unnecessary things can be little details that add flourish and flavor and color and breathe life into it, but most of it is distracting, extra stuff, extra baggage. It's like handing a sprinter a backpack with 40 pounds of books in it. It will not work, but that's what people are often trying to do because they either don't have the craft to understand that which is necessary to make the story of their grandmother's escape from a concentration camp work dramatically, because they're so attached to everything that happens in the story. They want to put everything in, but they're bringing their rock collection onto the rocket that's about to take off. And no, this was my grandmother's rock collection, and it has to come with me to the moon. And they're like, not in a trillion years are you getting that pile of rocks into this launch pad. And so they're ruthless about what gets on that rocket and not. And writers have to be the same thing. That's why they talk about kill your darlings, that kind of thing. It's once you understand the mechanics of what's necessary to make your story work dramatically, then almost everything else is unnecessary. And you're constantly combating it. It reminds me of an old Tom Swift story from when I was a kid. He was an inventor, and he invented this device that expelled water. So he could go to the bottom of the ocean and turn it on, and it would make a bubble the size of this room. And he was, deep, and he was on the bottom working, and there was no water. And it literally expelled the water in the same way that it expels the unnecessary. There is nothing unnecessary allowed in because you're rigorously saying, what is the cause of that? It's like, say that your sister calls you up one morning, wakes you up out of a dead sleep and goes, hey, I just had this crazy dream that you won the lottery. And it was the most realistic dream. Go buy a ticket. And you're like, no, I'm sleeping. No, go buy a ticket right now. You go buy the ticket and you win. And you're like, whoa. So the cause of you buying that ticket is she said you have to. And now the things that come before you buying that ticket might be that you get a parking ticket, you buy a coffee, you get some cigarettes. All that stuff comes before you buying the ticket, but the cause of you buying your ticket is she demanded that you do so. So you're looking at the cause of an event rather than what merely happened before it. And the things that merely happened before it may or may not make it into the script, but only if they See, there's the overall story where the big bones of the action are set up first, and then you figure out the bones of the action required to make it work at the act level, so you layer in a little bit more, but strict cause and effect. So nothing, so getting that parking ticket may not be part of the chain of cause and effect that helped you get to the store and get the ticket. And then at the sequence level, maybe that parking ticket is part of the chain of events that is necessary, or it may not get in. At the scene level, you're inventing a little more, but there's things that never get into the story. It's like when you make a suit, there's a pile of cloth left around it on the floor at the end. You got a suit, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that didn't get into the suit. So it's about that which is necessary and only that which is necessary, and rigorously stripping out the unnecessary.